The Nikon Noct is a very special lens, and Noct comes from the Latin word noctis and means night. And the commercial promotion of the lens immediately starts with an image of the night sky and beautiful mountains in the foreground, very likely leveraging the Noct widest open aperture of f/0.95. But is the lens really made for the night? Can we replicate those pictures of the night sky with that clarity as Nikon is suggesting in their promotional video here? Let's find out in this video. Let's go out into the night and shoot the night sky with widest open aperture f/0.95, and let's get started with the video. I'm using the Nikon Noct on the Nikon Z7, which is a fantastic camera, and I had the opportunity in the past to do several shootings with that camera, and you also find a couple of videos on my channel where I will post the links below this video in the info box. The build quality of the lens is without any doubts, and the lens has an OLED display. I described this in one of my videos linked below, and it also has a depth of field indicator, so you have all means to do fantastic shootings. But the purpose of this video is to replicate night sky images as we saw them in the promotional video of Nikon. And let's get started with that first in my backyard and then out there in nature. So my first steps with the lens when it comes to the night sky were not very impressive. This is an image from my backyard, but we'll go to improve this now step by step. And then when we go out there on a lake into the mountains to shoot the night sky, you will see what this lens is capable of. At least we see in this boring picture Orion star constellation and the well-known nebula attached to it. Looking at another image taken that night in my backyard, it's, I think, again, a good result. You see Venus here in the middle of the image and another star constellation I come to in a moment. This time with 20 seconds and an ISO of 100 and aperture as wide open as possible. And then I decided to place the camera on my Skywatcher Star Adventurer, which I also placed in my backyard, in order to take several frames and following Earth rotation to later stack them on into one image to reduce noise and enhance clarity. And that worked very well, but it required some work in an app called Starry Landscape Stacker. And you see here in a time lapse what I did to actually mark and flag the stars I wanted to be enhanced. And then I was dealing here with 48 frames, which I stacked together, here kind of outlining where the night sky is. And then the program starts to do its work and stacks those images on top of each other. They are aligned here with one frame, 47 frames aligned with one frame gives 48 images, stacked together, composed, and of course aligned to produce one large TIFF file, which was the following here. And here clearly Venus is super sharp, and you see also the star constellation of Pleiades, which in this night was just a few days away from a rare constellation where Venus was very close to that constellation. Shooting a lens with f/0.95 is a very special experience, and I'm used to that experience because I own for a while the Leica Noctilux f/0.95, and I also did a comparison between the Nikon Noct and the Leica Noctilux, and again the link will be below the video in the info box. And then the Nikon Noct became its chance to shine, because I was testing the Leica M10 Monochrome in the night close before new moon on one of my favorite spots in Switzerland for a Milky Way shooting, and I also had the Nikon Z7 with the Nikon Noct in my bag in order to shoot the image also in color, but of course with a much narrower field of view, because we are talking about 58mm focal length on the Nikon Noct, and that of course is much narrower than the wide angle lens I used on the Leica M10 Monochrome. By the way, the link to that video with the M10 Mono is below in the info box. And in that video on the Leica M10 Mono, I indicated by a red rectangle what about the field of view will be for that Nikon Noct shooting. And when I later returned home and had a look at the RAW file, it was past midnight, and I looked at the image. It did blow me away. Already before post-processing, the stars were pinpoint sharp, super clear, super crisp, almost no noise in the picture. And when I later did a little bit of tweaking in post-processing, the Milky Way popped even more. So I'm very happy with that result, and also want to show quickly the metadata here. So you see the exposure time was only 10 seconds, and only because typically for a Milky Way shot I have between 20 and 30 seconds. It only had an ISO of 800, and that is absolutely astonishing because typically I use at least 1600 or more often 3200, and for the Milky Way on the Leica M10 monochrome, because of its nice noise behavior, I was using an ISO of 6400. But clearly what makes it possible here to have a shorter exposure time and a lower ISO is the wide open aperture of f/0.95. And since the Nikon Noct, as I demonstrated in a couple of videos on my channel, is, even if you shoot it wide open, super sharp, the image is indeed very crisp. The mountains are crisp, the Milky Way and the stars are crisp, and the overall picture is a very sharp image. The last remark on the metadata I want to make is the time of the shooting. And you see here the shot was taken a couple of minutes past midnight, and I think that's the secret of serious Milky Way photography or night sky photography. You need to be ready to stay awake for a long time, and very often it's a long time past midnight before you see the Milky Way in the location where you want to see it, with the galactic core just where it should be, on top of a mountain or somewhere else behind the building maybe you want to have in the foreground. And I showed in the video on the Leica M10 monochrome and my Milky Way shooting in black and white how to use apps, for instance on the iPhone or the iPad, to plan for a Milky Way shooting so that you can set the Milky Way in scene in the way you want to have it. Shooting the night sky over the mountains like you see it here with a 58mm lens is very special, and it has a special character because many Milky Way pictures use wide-angle lenses in order to capture large parts of the Milky Way. But that picture here has a charming character. I like it a lot, and since I have a very low level of noise here with ISO 800 based on that wide open aperture of f/0.95, it can be printed in very large dimensions, and it will make a nice picture on the wall or a good image to sell to clients. 58mm as a focal length also has its own charming character if you want to go deeply into the horizon. And what you see here is an image taken outside of Zurich, over Lake Zurich, and at the very far horizon you see the night lights of Zurich city. And it was a very hazy evening when I took that image, but again, the Nikon Noct on the Nikon Z7 did a fantastic job in capturing that image, besides all the haziness and besides all the humidity we had in the air. And a little bit of post-processing helped reducing the noise here. But these kind of images with, let's say, a narrow field of view with 58mm focal length, they can be very nice in certain situations and for certain image compositions. But that widest open aperture of f/0.95 of course also helps at daylight. Here is an image I took and also showed in one of my videos some time ago, and clearly if you shoot wide open at f/0.95 you get a nice bokeh, nice background blurriness, and nevertheless your subject in the foreground will be pinpoint sharp. So we can conclude to the question at the beginning of this video: yes, the Nikon Noct is really made for the night. It is a lens wide open and can get along with very low light situations in a fantastic way. If you liked my video, I'm very happy if you drop me your thumbs up. If you like my channel, do not forget to subscribe to stay tuned on my content. Thanks for watching. Peace out.